Hey my dear fellow monkeys, this is the third video in the Psychology of Evil series. In this video I'll be talking about 10 of the situational determinants of evil. So the primary assumption here is that everyone is capable of evil, and I think I have convincingly shown you evidence of normal people having the capability to become evil in my previous video. Having that assumption in mind, these are some of the situational determinants which explain how normal people who don't have any past criminal records can become evil, provided the situations. So the first situational determinant is presenting a justification or a rationale for an undesirable action. This is called a cover story in psychological research. So when psychologists are recruiting subjects for study, they have a cover story to make sure that the participants' bias doesn't kick in when they actually know what the study is. So that is what a cover story is. So the justification or rationale that you give is like a cover story that you trick your own mind to believe. Some examples would be Nazi propaganda for the final solution, or a communist utopia of shattering class oppression, which resulted in massive amounts of lives lost, for example in the period of Stalin, or in Mao Zedong's rule in China. The second thing is arranging a contractual obligation to make sure that people follow certain practices if asked of them. An example would be soldiers in the military. Some people might not be willing to take a particular action, but a contractual obligation will make them do it. The third one is giving people meaningful roles, or at least a perception of them playing a meaningful role. An example of this would be garnering support of general public for a military intervention which might pursue immoral actions. And just because I'm giving examples from military doesn't mean that I'm saying that there should be no military or whatever. What I'm trying to say is there are many examples in military interventions which are proven to be evil. So it is very important to understand that, so that the military practices can be made better to make sure that we are not the perpetrators of evil, or we are not being tricked by say some politician who wants to do this intervention. The next one is presenting a justifiable rule in the beginning and using that rule in a different scenario to justify unthinking compliance. For example, people in the intelligence community might be asked to extract information from people, but torturing people who have been caught becomes like a natural part of intelligence. It might not have been included in the contractual obligation. I don't know how these contracts are made, but I'm just making an assumption that no person in the right mind would ask for a person to be tortured, even if it is a criminal. We can talk about the gray areas. What if it is a ticking time bomb situations and whatever. That is not the point of the video, so I'll just go into like shallow level examples to make the point. The next one is intentionally using euphemisms for the act and the action. For example, Nazis' propaganda to eliminate Jews from Europe was by saying that it is the final solution to all the ills in the society. The way in which it was framed for people to accept it and become Nazis was that it was used as a euphemism. A similar example can be given in terms of animal welfare also. A major point I want to make here is that I'm not trying to compare people who have been killed in the Holocaust to animals, but in the animal agriculture, people say we are harvesting meat. Meat is not a crop to be harvested. So it makes people feel that, oh, okay, this is a crop. It is like a crop that is being harvested. No, it is actually killing an animal and obtaining its flesh for human consumption. That is how euphemisms play such a role in framing the question so that people accept those unreasonable actions. The next one is diffusion of responsibility. So this is very common and it is prevalent everywhere. No one wants to take responsibility, which is why I was recommending a book called Extreme Ownership in my book review video. So it is very important to take responsibility, and when people commit, or when people are told that they'll not be in charge of whatever evil they perpetrate, or that will not come out of the particular area in which it is conducted, it creates a lot of incentive for the person to act in an evil manner. So that level of diffusion of responsibility has a very big impact on people committing evil deeds. It doesn't mean that it is just evil acts of commission, but it is also evil acts of omission. An example would be Kitty Genovese's brutal killing in front of 39 people. None of the people from that group came to intervene and save her, even though she was screaming and asking for help. This is called an evil of inaction. Because other people think that there are other people who might intervene, no one intervened. So that is one of the major situational determinants of evil. The next one is stepping stones for the ultimate evil. An example would be starting with graffiti and moving on to other heinous acts. This has been documented in New York also. There has been a study, I'll try to link that in the description below. That is one of the social determinants. The next one is somewhat related to it, but it paves way for increased aggression every single time. This has been demonstrated in one of Dr. Stanley Milgram's studies, where people are asked to slowly increase the amount of shock that is being given to the other person who has been told that he or she is a student, and the person who is giving the shock is the teacher, and the shocks are a form of learning. The level of aggression slowly starts increasing up to the point where people are even ready to give 350 volts of shock to the student, although the student was not actually being shocked. The next one is the influential authority in charge of creating the scenario in which evil deeds are committed starts just and slowly starts becoming unjust. He or she goes from being reasonable and rational to unreasonable and irrational. For example, salespeople working in essential oils, they might start with very minor claims, and when the pressure to increase the sales starts increasing from the authority, and the authority starts giving them orders to make irrational claims, that starts to seep into the salespeople who are at the lower rungs of the hierarchy, and it starts to propagate in the public sphere also. Another example would be James Warren Jones, who was a cult leader who led around 900 people to their deaths in Guyana because of some cultish ideology or cultish nonsense. So the authority in charge is actually a social determinant. He or she has the ability to control or manipulate this situation so that people in the lower ranks of the hierarchy start doing evil deeds. The last one is making the exit costs high. For example, a student who has finished his PhD is looking for a postdoctoral opportunity in another lab. The advisor of this student might not like the idea of this student moving away from his lab because the student has been able to produce good data and a good number of scientific papers. In this case, the advisor threatens to give a bad recommendation if the student tries to apply for a postdoctoral opportunity in another lab. So what happens in this case is that the student sticks with the professor for some more time, and in the meantime, to be in good standing with the professor, the student, even though he or she might not have got good results from the lab, they might start to tamper data, which impacts the scientific community because bad data is going to create bad theories and they might start to stick, and people might start basing their assumptions on that theory and elaborate more. Even though the chances of that happening is low, but the student's career will be over if people find out, or if the scientific community finds out that he or she has been tampering with the data. Making this small change results in a consequence which is bad for both the student and the professor. So these are some of the social determinants or situational determinants or even cultural determinants that we can say that alter the way in which a particular person acts. So it is not just the disposition or the prior psychological makeup of a person, it is also the social factors that play a major role, and in some cases social factors play a bigger role rather than the dispositional psychological makeup. We'll talk about each of these situational determinants in the next few videos, and we'll be going into detail about each of these situational determinants. Leave a like if you like the video and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Share this video with your friends and family so that people are aware of social or cultural determinants that push them towards evil action, and they'll be aware of making sure that they don't stray down that path. I've been Kaushik from the Thinking Monkey. I'll see you all next time. Out.